All right, y'all. So let's go ahead and get started with our PLC today. Um, let's get started with our celebrations. Anybody have some celebrations? Tell me something good that's going on in class.
This is kind of not class, but it's teaching stuff.
Mhm.
I post a lot of stuff I do on social media,
Mhm.
but I'm not just getting responses from other teachers, but my former teachers,
Mhm.
and are talking to me about what I'm doing and asking like, do you have an activity for, other things. But in May when I went home and was talking to one of my former teachers, she was like, I'm not doing STEM, but I want to use some of the strategies that you use, and like wanted to talk about what we were doing. And
Oh.
then one of my former history teachers was like, hey, do you have whatever? So it's kind of cool, not just what we're doing in the classroom, but even my teachers who I always looked up to are
Are
wanting,
asking you
yeah,
about.
like,
Oh, that's awesome.
let's talk about it. I liked it. I thought it was cool.
That's great. That's
Very
awesome. I love that. Anybody else?
I,
Bobby, tell everybody about your My Little Pony voting.
So the other day, the kids brought up, somebody said something about My Little Pony, and I only know a name or two from there because of a prank call show that I listened to. So, so I said something about a pony, and they said that, like, oh no, Mr. Bowie, this other pony is way better. You should have a vote. Okay. So I put it on the board and I had them vote. And then one of the football players was like, no, we need to do another vote between this pony and this pony. And I was like, okay. So we did that on Friday, and they got a kick out of it. I printed out the pictures of the ponies and put them on the board, and they all went to go vote.
That was hilarious. When I went in and I was like,
Rainbow Dash.
yes.
Yeah.
And I told him, I was like, even though it was, something silly, I was like, the kids will always remember that. It's like, remember when we had that vote about My Little Ponies in Mr. Bowie's class? So I was like, that was super cool.
Even when I came to the class or whatever, some of your kids were waiting for the bus on Friday and I was filling in for somebody else. And like two of your kids were like, hey, Miss Farrell.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I was like, oh, thank you. Like, it was just cool to be able to like make it like a school culture, not just like, you're not a teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was really good too. So when we talk about like these are our kids, like they really are all our kids and they can connect with multiple teachers. So maybe we can switch it up to where Bobby comes to your class, and they'll get to know him. So, Mr. Bradley, you wanted to say something?
yeah, not a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
I was just saying, I taught my first class with actual kids last Friday, I think it was, for the first time in I don't know how many years, but it was just cool, just having an interaction with kids and them asking me a million different questions, and it was unscripted, so that was cool. I hadn't did that in a while. I was in Miss Maramonte's. She teaches the intro to tech class, and they were going over like the basics of computers, and she knew that I built like my own computers and stuff. So she asked me to bring one of my computers and just talk to them about components and how everything works. So I brought my computer, and it's like a full tower, so it's this tall. So they were like, oh.
Lights and stuff.
Yeah, it had all kind of custom lights and stuff. So they were all touching it and stuff, and it still worked. So it turned out okay.
See, our principal's a tech geek. Nobody knew.
Yeah, it turned out okay.
All right, y'all. So I sent you all the link to our agenda in our s'more. It also has, if you will open it up in your browser, it has a lot of other links that you can follow with us today. We're actually going to start with a strategy that I wanted to show everybody. If you keep going down, you'll see that it says something about the National Archives. It says primary source analysis, National Archives, click here. So go ahead and click on that, and you'll see that National Archives has a partnership with, I think, the Department of Education, and they have a lot of different resources for primary students. Can you sit on the sides, please? Thank you. So there is several different resources, and I wanted us to kind of go through one. So if you would get the activity that says analyze a poster, And then on the back it says analyze a photograph. So what we're going to do, we're going to look at a particular picture. So if you were in class, you would pick a picture, poster, some sort of political cartoon. There's a lot of different analysis tools in there. I picked this one because 8th grade is about to get on and 7th grade actually, in a few, will get on the analysis of, can you sit on the sides, please? Thank you. All right, so 7th grade is going to get, 7th and 8th grade are getting into the revolutionary period soon. So this particular picture it actually falls under two different eras, with the French and Indian War with Benjamin Franklin, and then it became one of the rallying calls during the actual American Revolution. So that's the background that I'm going to give you. So I want you to look at this picture and then try to do the analysis that's on your paper. You could choose either one. You could do the poster one, or you could do the picture one. Actually, let's everybody do the poster one. You can work with a partner if you want to. And go. Why'd y'all leave Bobby by himself? That's not nice.
Come on down, Bo.
It's okay. I don't mind you messing with Bobby because U of H kind of slaughtered TSU this weekend.
Did you see the band video?
That was so awesome, though. I thought that was really cool. Yes. Bobby, we talked about this. When you're missing games, you can give us your season tickets. This would be great. Okay, we'll give you about 1 more minute. NE is pretty much all of the New England colonies. So that would be Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Connecticut. All right, 30 seconds. All right, and stop. Okay, first off, what did you get from doing this particular activity? What did you have to do to be able to process this information? Huh? Analyze, okay. Anybody else?
I guess draw conclusions or whatever it's called.
Okay, analyze, draw conclusions,
I'm sure it's a
Huh?
bigger word, but yeah.
predict.
That's the word.
You had to infer, okay. Okay, so everything that we just talked about are all verbs that we usually see in where? Artiques. Okay. We also see these things more so in our process standards. when we're talking about what kids need to do with primary source documents or maps or posters or those type of things. So I thought this was really good when, although this is, and we had our, during our convocations, worksheets don't grow dendrites, but think about how you can break that down and have it become a different activity. You could do a gallery walk and have different sections of this in there. You can do a jigsaw and have different kids do different parts of this. So we used to do optic when it came to like pictures like this, but I saw this and I thought that this was really good. And again, if you go to the National Archives website that I have linked on the floor, it has something for almost everything that we deal with in our process standards. So it has something for a photograph, written document, artifact, poster, map, cartoon, video, and sound recording. So almost anything that deals with our particular process standards, they actually have some sort of analysis document. And again, that connects directly with our TEK. So when our TEK says, you know, you need to analyze this or you need to understand this, then we can use these particular resources to help us. How do you think you can use this in your class? What do you think? How do you think your kids will interact with this particular activity? Any type of analysis that you see up there. Okay.
I think it would help them break down whatever it is they're doing. Because I know that when we have that one day where we did a DBQ, they understood like how to look at the picture and then kind of break it down. Don't just like glance at it and then go straight to the question because you could be missing out on
Absolutely.
minor detail.
I love that. I'm glad you brought up DBQ because if we do something like this and then do a DBQ, it helps them to be able to understand what type of processes they need to go through in order to answer those questions. So, thank you.
And it puts them in a time period themselves. They did the speeches before, and they have to go back to that time period and think of what it's like then.
Absolutely. So they have to put themselves in that place in history. Love that. Okay. So what did y'all gather from this particular picture? What did y'all say as you were going through and analyzing it? Is it though? That's the question. Is it self-explanatory? If I had no background and no context about this, is it self-explanatory? Because sometimes we commit a suicide with our kids, right? You're supposed to know this. They don't know it.
Okay, I would say,
So think from a kid perspective.
yeah, I would say, if you didn't say anything at all about it, put it up, like, being that we all taught social studies before, like, the first thing I started doing was saying, oh, New England, New York, New Jersey, Maine, like that type of stuff. But I imagine if you didn't have that lens or that scope, you'd probably be thinking, like, what exactly is that? Is that gangs in New York, or what is it? So,
Yes.
Why did they leave out the other colonies?
So is that one question that you're saying or you're
Yeah,
asking?
like the kids, like, since we've taught them like all the regions, they would be like, well, some of them are missing.
I'm glad you said that because New England at that time during the French and Indian War when this was put together, New England was probably the tightest knit region. They were like, hey, we're established, we got all this stuff going on. Most of the other areas were the disjointed areas. They were like, this is, we're our own entity. And that's why Benjamin Franklin, who's attributed to this particular picture, actually did this because he's like,
We're together.
we're supposed to be. Yeah.
But like with New England, he didn't have to list them individually because
They were together.
they were, and he put them at the head.
Yes. And that says something, right? And then if you get into the revolutionary part, you talk about New England. Most of the issues leading to the revolution happened in the Boston area, right? So Massachusetts in that area. Coach Nutt, will you close that door for me, please? Okay. Now, let's analyze the picture exactly. Like, I don't know about y'all, but I do have a phobia of snakes. Okay? So, but a cut-up snake does nothing for me. I'm just like, oh, you're dead. That's what you are. It's not a threat. Okay? So What was Benjamin Franklin trying to say with that? We're going to die if we don't join together. And we're not a threat if we're not united. Okay?
They don't have to worry about you.
They don't have to worry about us. Okay? Now, that was during the French and Indian War. During the American Revolution, same principle, right? Listen, if we don't join together, we're not going to win this war. Okay? Yes, sir.
There's something else I noticed, and I had a question. I mentioned it to Penny, was the tongue. So the tongue was like an arrow pointing out.
Mm-hmm.
And usually, snakes have forked tongues. So I was like, does that mean something? Is that saying something about,
Going forward.
yeah, going forward or them exiting or, whatever? But I did notice that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So think about this with your kids. If we use something like this, it not only, like, all I need is a picture, this particular analysis tool, and I could actually teach a particular lesson from this focus. Just these things. Because I have to give them the background information, I have to make them analyze what's going on in this particular unit, and then I also have to make sure that they're able to make a synthesis, right? Like, can I connect all of these things, all of these different parts together? And it forces them to be able to process.
It's a good introduction. Like, I did one, a gallery walk with the civil rights movement.
I remember that,
And
yes.
so the kids, I didn't say anything about the civil rights movement, just gave them an analysis sheet and they got to go pick. And so they're already like, what are we talking about? Why are they doing that? Where is, the
Inquiry. Mm-hmm.
Starts. And so, like, if you do these kinds of things, they start asking questions and they start digging. It's not you just telling them information.
Absolutely, and that's what we want, right? That's the biggest thing, to help kids have better questions. So it's not just, what are we doing? Why do we have to do this? It's better questions because we've given them some sort of focus, some sort of purpose. Okay? All right. Did everybody see this as beneficial? Can you possibly use this in your class coming up soon? Okay, awesome. Good deal. Okay, next on our agenda, I'm sorry, Ms. Farrell, I skipped over you. Would you like to do any department chair announcements while I gear up the next thing?
Okay, I still need plans from everybody. Bowie, I got yours, and Matthews, I got hers, and I'm actually having to use them today because your son is out sick, so good thing she got them to me last week. And then also, we need to bring Chromebooks for our meetings. So grab one, put it in your bag, bring it to, or a laptop, and it'll be a Chromebook. But have those with you. Again, be on duty, be at your doors. And I turn it on to Silas and Peggy, so hopefully we'll do those things soon.
Awesome, Silas.
I have something I need to tell you. I set up my Pearson Real Life. I do not have a fourth period at Pearson Real Life. I'm going to use a Pearson Real Life tomorrow. So I knew you could call and ask me if you could look at this stuff.
That's going to be a Jennifer Grant question. All
Clark
right.
did it last year, but I need to go Grant or Clark.
Yes, because she's our social studies curriculum coordinator. Okay. All right, y'all. So almost everybody took something last week. If it was, a unit assessment, 8th grade took a snapshot. So when we talk about some of the SISD non-negotiables, we need to talk about how what it looks like when we analyze our data. So I asked you to pick up a couple of things when you came in. You have a student data tracking sheet for each one of the grade levels. You also have the data analysis form that you're going to have to do for when you meet with your appraiser. That's usually just for DCAs though. But I wanted to make sure, since we're going to be talking about data today, that everybody had the tools that they needed. Okay? Now, a lot of you asked me, about the data walls in your classroom and what, student trackers should look like. So first off, the purpose of data walls is to track class data on unit and district assessments, to make data-informed decisions in regards to instruction, develop solid reteach and intervention plans, organize students who need to be in regular tutorials, and then engage students who can move from tier to tier with extra assistance. So when we're looking at this data, we want to definitely think about these things and when we say move from tier to tier, I'm not just talking about our kids who aren't making a grade, I'm talking about our kids who are that are already at approaches that we can move to meets, kids who are at meets that we can move to masters, and even the kids who are at masters, how do we maintain them at that particular thing, okay? So I have this picture. This is actually Miss Hudson's data wall in her classroom. It doesn't have to be something super fancy. She used painter's tape to make her data wall, okay? So there's an example of what the data wall could possibly look like, okay? Here's some more examples that I thought we could possibly use. We have the class data tracker over here, where it has like DCA2, and then I'm guessing that's a unit cell cycle. It's for science. Someone here also had like just a bulletin board, and they would change it as they took different tests, and they had the different pie charts and bar graphs that they had that showed student progress. Another one where they had like, here's the unit goal, here's the standards, who met the goal, who didn't, all those different things. And again, here's another one that has the data that's on here as well. So you have this in your particular, if you all would look at that in the, I'm sorry y'all, go to your SMORE, you have the access to this particular presentation. You can see the pictures, figure out how you want to do that. We will have the cabinet come back to see if we are adhering to our non-negotiables that we're supposed to be following. So that needs to be up this week if you don't already have it up. So you can model it after what we have in here in our data war room, okay? Or you can create your own, but these are just some examples. Now, as far as student tracking, these are some examples. Yes, sir.
Hey, is there anybody that doesn't have a teacher data wall up yet? Y'all all have one up? Y'all don't have one? Okay. I mean, I know we don't have any data yet.
Yeah, to put it up. Mm-hmm.
But I want to say something. This one that shows that you cannot put individual students' names up there, that is breaking the privacy laws.
No, I'm not. I'm just showing you an example. I understand that. Okay, but that's why I put these two right next to each other. You definitely don't want to put the kids' names up there, but you can assign them a number. So like if this is your first period, you can put 101, and that's the first student that you assign a grade to. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in alphabetical order. Actually, I would probably say don't put it in alphabetical order so kids won't figure out who that number actually belongs to. So the kid only knows that that's their number, okay? But again, you can create something. The reason why I put this up there was so that you can see that there are different templates that can be used in order to track student data.
So can we just do class, like, not like that, or do we need to somehow put students on it somehow? Like class grades?
Mr. Bradley?
Third period, fourth period, seventh period, instead of individuals, especially with the teachers that have like 210, 220 kids.
So I'm going to show you some.
I don't know if y'all have enough board room to put individual, students, like all of your students on the board. It's gonna take up the whole board. I would think that, just me talking, I think it would be better, to do it and track it by, on your board, track it by periods. But you can have something, in your computer where you're tracking the kids, so you know what period it is. But on your board, I think it would be better to be by like class periods.
I'm gonna show y'all something that I created, and I'm gonna. I think I sent it out. It's in the SMORE. But I also wanted to show you some of the standard walls that they showed the principals. They basically made a poster and they laminated and they used laundry clips and had the arrows put on there. And that way, on this day we're doing this process standard. Because what they're telling us is that they want to know what process standard you're using, not just the content, not just the knowledge statement and the SE, okay? So we're going to work on making sure that we have that information. I thought this was really cool. all this is sheet protectors, and you kind of turn it in, kind of like some people have the champs board, and all you have to do is, I'm gonna stick all these things in here, and that goes my content objective, language objective. As a matter of fact, Multilingual, which we'll have a training on Wednesday, but Multilingual has said you don't necessarily have to have a language objective, just put the else that you're using, and that is it. But we'll have a full training on that on Wednesday. Okay? All right. So speaking of when we talk about...
If you do it that way, you don't have to print them again next year, you have them all.
So true. So true. So one of the things that I have that I shared with you all was just an example of how you can possibly do your data wall. And I have that information here. This could be possibly what you do. Then down here, I have what you can possibly do for your kids. So on every test, and I would suggest you do this way, you know how kids have moved from tier to tier. So you have below approaches meets masters. If you are only going to look at this particular document, then you can put the kids' names in it. If you are going to post this document, then I would give them a number. That way they can see how am I moving from tier to tier. And you could print this page out and you could post it instead of, oh, I got to make a whole nother data wall. I could just print this out and kids can refer to it. I could put it in like a little cluster area over to the side on the wall. Okay? Any questions about what we went over with the data walls? I know that the principals are going to be coming around between today, tomorrow, and Wednesday to see if we have it up. So you might want to make that a priority this week. Okay. All right. Last thing I think I have on the agenda is vertical alignment expectations. We discussed not last week, but the week before last, how we wanted to make sure that everybody was doing the same thing when it came to testing, as far as making sure the kids are proving their answers or using the error approach, those type of things. If they are not doing that in your class, then that means we are not using the vertical standards that we agreed to at the beginning, at the beginning of the year. So please make sure that your kids are using that. Like, that is, every other content area that is tested uses some sort of tool or some sort of strategy to make sure the kids are proving their answers or showing their work. We need to do that in social studies as well. So again, the error approach, proving your answers, we need to make sure that it's consistent across the board. Also, when your kids have to go back and check their answers. So when they're checking their answers, they need to make sure that they're doing something that is going to give them an understanding of what they missed. So I think, Ms. Lowe, you've used the house strategy in your class, right? From Lead Forward? Okay. So I'm about to show that one to everybody. Lead Forward has a slew of resources that we can use. Let's see, instructional tools, instructional strategies playlist. Once you go to this particular thing, it tells you, so it has like movement and discourse, rehearsal and practice, extended thinking, learning from mistakes, and evidence of learning. So I'm gonna click on the learning from mistakes, and that's where this is. It's called Fixer Upper, and it looks like a house, if it'll ever come up. Of course it didn't come up right, because it's not. Shame. We're gonna have to talk to Lead Forward and tell them they need some Google-friendly templates. But basically it helps the kids to be able to go back through their tests, figure out what they did wrong, and it has a whole template that helps them with that. So if you all want them to do that, I would suggest, have them come to your tutorials or give that to them as extra credit. Speaking of extra credit, if you're going to give your kids extra credit on a test, make sure that the curve is the same across the board. We don't want parents to call and say, you know, oh, well, Ms. Farrell gave 15 points and, you know, Mr. Bovee only gave 10. That would be inconsistent. So we want to make sure that we're consistent across the board with that.
I think I brought it last year, that
Mhm.
around here looking like 52%,
Mhm.
it would be the 70 or whatever.
Yes.
So I can share that again.
Okay, awesome.
It would be across the board.
Question.
Okay, yes, sir.
Can we talk about that today in planning? The curve?
The curve, yes, absolutely. And we will be planning in Ms. Farrell's room today for the unpacking the teaks. So, just FYI. Any questions about what we went over today? So we went over, I did not talk about the last thing. Okay, so everybody has this particular document. This is something, when we talk about tracking our data, a lot of times we don't include our students when it comes to tracking their data, what they know about their, the standards, their TEKS. This particular document helps them to be able to track the data. They can put, this is the test that I took, Unit 1 test or Snapshot 1, and these were the TEKS that were on it, and this was the percentage that I did on this particular thing. They can calculate this themselves, but when we're making these tests, we need to be diligent about making sure that the TEKS are connected to it so that the kids know what TEKS they were focused on a particular question. Okay? And if we have to make our own unit test, we want to make sure that we don't just give one question that deals with one TEKS standard. You want to make sure that you at least give two so that we can see, do they actually know that particular information. Okay? And this doesn't necessarily have to just be for sit down, multiple choice, bubbling questions. Like this could be when you use clickers or Kahoot, quizzes, because all of those things you can plug into standards to see how the kids did. Okay?
We have plenty of paper to run this for each student?
Say that again?
Do we have plenty of paper to run this for every student?
We could possibly condense it, I would say, like put 2 sheets on one. I would not make this whole packet like this. I just wanted to make sure that everybody had one. But I would condense it if I'm going to make it for every student. All right, any questions about what we had today in PLC? So we went over our analysis documents with the National Archives. We talked about our data walls and what we need to do to analyze our data. We talked about the student tracking sheets and vertical alignment of what we want our kids to do when they take a test as far as showing their work using prove your answer or the error approach. Any questions about anything that we discussed?
I'm just going to add.
Go ahead, Mr. Brown.
When y'all making your data walls, if y'all need any of the blue tape or anything, just let me know sooner than later. And if I don't have any in the storage, I can go and get y'all some to help out with the wall or whatnot.
Wiki tape works good. I'll put mine with wiki tape.
I have no idea what that is, but as long as it works for you. All right, cool.
Okay. Awesome. Well, that's all I have today. It's 8:21. So if you all want to go get whatever you need to get established, let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see y'all in planning today. I did say that that's going to be what you use when the kids take the DCA and you analyze it, and that's what you will take to talk about your data with your appraiser. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, forgive me. One more thing. Miss Green, this is the information for student council. 6th grade is blue, 7th grade is yellow, 8th grade is white. If you would take these and distribute them to your students so that they can have the information about running for student council.